As far as I can recall, the initial shiver of inspiration was somehow prompted by a newspaper story about an ape in the Jardin des Plantes, who after months of coaxing by a scientist produced the first drawing ever charcoaled by an animal. The sketch showed the bars of the poor creature's cage. This is what author Vladimir Nabokov said when asked his inspiration for writing his book Lolita, a book that Vanity Fair 1983 called the most convincing love story of the century, a book that caused a spur of a large online community of girls calling themselves nymphettes, a book that details the complete tragedy and degradation of a young girl's life, but has been boiled down to Lana Del Rey songs about playing hard to get with her daddy. Dolores Haze, a name that roughly translates into sorrow and confusion, has become a commodity in American culture. Society has come to view Lolita as a girl child who with full self-awareness has a willing sexual relationship with a 45-year-old man. Lolita, 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 Lolita is not a real person. Dolores Haze is a victim, and our misinterpretation of the book kills her again and again, forever and ever, with love at ever and ever sight.
Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins, my sin, my soul.
A famous quote of romance and loyalty to a lover. Of course, directly after this paragraph comes about 10 pages detailing a general obsession with young girls, but that's beside the point.
Boom. Roasted.
This classic novel from 1955 is one of the best-known books on the list of controversial novels. It details a middle-aged man's, Humbert, haunting obsession with a young 12-year-old girl, Dolores Haze, or better known, Lolita. In this medium-sized book, Humbert narrates in documentation style to the jury, the reader, his extensive sexcapades with his young nymphette captor, their journeys on the road, at home, and his escape from the world. He arrives to a house in America to teach English for the summer when the woman of the house introduces him to her 12-year-old daughter, Dolores Haze. Humbert is immediately infatuated with her and does everything in his power to have her, including marrying Charlotte Haze, Dolores' mother. When Charlotte finds out Hum's love for her daughter, she runs out into the street and is hit by a car. He then takes custody of Dolores and takes her on multiple road trips so she can't escape him. When Dolores ends up tired of Humbert's all-around abuse, she gets another older man, Quilty, to take her away from Humbert in the night. Years later, Dolores sends Humbert a letter asking for money, and when Humbert arrives, it turns out she's pregnant with another man's child. He gives her money and begs her to come away with him. She declines. Humbert leaves and goes off to murder Quilty because he ruined Lolita. Oh, the irony! Before he is arrested, he sees down the hillside a group of young girls playing in the field and is once again overcome by a nostalgic sense of joy. He is arrested and dies in prison, and Dolores dies in childbirth at the ripe age of 17 years old. The reader is led to believe that Humbert is truly in love with this girl, that she loves him back, but most importantly that she started it, which is why the book is so fantastic. Nabokov brilliantly wrote a disgusting and manipulative character like Humbert, and yet with absolute skill made him somewhat likable. The reader may find themselves laughing at Humbert's little jokes, believing that he's just a cloddish old fool who's under the grasp of a precocious young girl. In a funny but not funny twist of fate, much of the audience does believe every word Humbert says. Unfortunately, just like Dolores Haze, the reader has absolutely nowhere else to go. Lolita, a sexually precocious young girl. This is a dictionary definition of the word. It is also, to me, the biggest crime in the misinterpretation of the book I've ever seen. The effect of the audience's misinterpretation is perfectly summed up in that one definition, believing that Dolores Haze was responsible. This started as soon as Lolita gained its status in America when director Stanley Kubrick made a film adaptation in 1962. The book was released in 1958. After the movie was released portraying Dolores Haze as a heart-shaped sunglasses-wearing teen, every single cover of the book thereafter had nothing but girls. This is something Nabokov specifically protested when first making the book. Lolita, the poor girl misunderstood. Nabokov asked for pure colors, melting clouds, accurately drawn details, a sunburst above a receding road with the light reflected in furrows and ruts after rain, and no girls. Absolutely no girls. However, the first thing that comes to mind with the word Lolita is never winding roads, a poor trapped girl grieving her dead mother, or a calm sunset after rain. Lolita is a red lipstick-wearing vixen, and this skewed view was reinforced the heaviest by the movie adaptation done in 1997. Lolita got a revamp in 1997, starring Jeremy Irons and a young Dominique Swain. The unfortunate bit of the movie is that it leaves out a very important chunk of information on Humbert Humbert. The film begins as Humbert Humbert arrives in New England, USA. It dives right into him meeting and becoming infatuated with a young Lolita, who just so happens to be living in his new tenant house. It then tells you a little bit about how when he was younger, he was in love with a girl named Annabelle, who died, and ever since then, he's been in love with 14-year-old girls because he's looking for her in every child. Contrary to how rosy the film makes it appear like Humbert just so happened to fall upon the singular incident of finding a perfect girl, this is not even close to the first time this has happened. While the movie starts out exactly where the book does, with the whole light of my life, fire of my loins speech, it fails to follow the next several pages detailing his life after Annabelle and before reaching the Hayes home. As Humbert grew older, he always had obsessions with younger girls. He mentions that although he attempted normal relationships in young life, he found himself consumed with localized lust for every passing nymphette. He also would sit in parks pretending to read a book just so he could watch the little girls play, and he recalls in good detail the few girls that got close to him while sitting. The movie also omits the part of the book in which Humbert details his experience with the many young prostitutes that have the nymphette quality about them. Most importantly, the Hayes household wasn't even the first house he was going to stay at. He actually planned on staying with a family that had a 12-year-old girl who he'd gratefully imagined that he could teach French to, and also fondle on the side. When he arrived, however, he was informed that the house had somehow burned down and the Hayeses agreed to take him in. It was there he coincidentally fell upon finding Lolita and thought, this one will do. The movie also infers that when Dolores and Humbert stay in a hotel together for the first time, Dolores was the first to initiate sexual intercourse. Of course, the book says otherwise. In chapter 29, Humbert describes his first sexual encounter with Lo, and he does everything he can to make it sound as if he was not responsible for what happened and Dolores was taking the lead in the situation. In a critique done by Elizabeth Patnaud, she mentions that Humbert says Lolita seduced him, but he begins the caressing, and he does not indicate who initiates the first kiss. However, the movie portrays it exactly as Humbert writes it, vaguely, and suggesting Dolores was the one responsible for initiating sexual interaction. Leaving such a big chunk out of the movie makes it very misleading. It's as if Humbert was taken over by love, and not complete, if not insane obsession with keeping this girl young and clean. This charming nubile seductress has spawned a community of young girls who call themselves nymphets. This community thrives mostly on Tumblr under URLs pertaining to nymphette, DDLG, daddy dom / little girl themes. While searching the term nymphette on Tumblr, the related terms are as follows: pale, coquette, prostitute, baby girl, Dolores Hayes, and age gap. Blogs like Coquette Fashion teach you how to dress like your favorite nymphette. A girl that goes under the URL Melancholy Virgin posts gifs that involve underage-looking girls having sex with far older men. There's a 19-year-old pornographic actress on Tumblr whose market is specifically geared toward nymphette style. Her most requested outfit is Bubblegum Haze, which is strikingly familiar to Dominique Swain's Lolita character. She goes under the name Dolly, and her site is Dolly's Playhouse. The material does not stop here. Scrolling through Tumblr, there's multiple blogs that use Lolita as a subconscious icon to look up to and be like. Results range from nymphette hairstyles to sexual images videos of childish-looking girls. Lana Del Rey, she's a singer, in case you didn't know who Lana Del Rey is, has also added to the community quite a bit by making a few songs referencing the aesthetic of Lolita quite heavily. Songs such as Lolita and Off to the Races have rhythmic lyrics like, I know I'm a mess with my suntan, bare feet, short dress, I don't care what they say about me. And light of your life, fire of your loins, be a good baby, do what I want. I'm your little harlot, scarlet, kiss me on my open mouth. This may have helped perpetuate the romanticism of Dolores Haze. May have. Not saying. Just very likely. I'm joking, she totally did. Of course, many members of the community have only seen the movie or heard the aesthetically pleasing Lana songs. And how could one be blamed for taking away a sickly love story? It all sounds so enticing. Being the light of an older man's life, making him so desperately wanting of you, you travel the country just so he can have you to himself. You have nobody else to turn to except your assigned lover. He's all you have in the world and there's nobody else. But lines like, "You see she had absolutely nowhere else to go," aren't romantic. It's simply a sick man rejoicing in the fact that he's finally trapped his young prey. It's really all kind of a sick sense of humor, because since 1955, Humbert has tricked his readers and watchers into believing him. So much so that even the films reflect Humbert's sense of Lolita without even thinking about it. In Dolores' final reflection of the situation, she recalls how she felt about it all, and she recalls the bars of her own cage, in this case, being with him. Lolita, Lolita, Lolita should be destroyed. Humbert never loved Dolores Haze. Humbert loved Lolita. Whoever he thought was Lolita died when her mother died. She died when she no longer had an escape. She died in childbirth at 17. There is no sparkle or romance in this novel. There is nothing to love about Dolores' inflated image or the lifestyle that goes with it. Lolita is a haunting recount of a terrible tragedy. Why do we continue to sexualize her short and terrifying life? Perhaps there is something in us that wishes to be loved or pretended to be loved, much like a confused 14-year-old girl. The goal of proving that you are mature enough to accept and deserve love of someone is a craving that is hard to satisfy. But we should put Lolita to rest with the rest of her. Maybe then we can protect the young girls who are so vulnerable to this feeling rather than promoting it. Rest in peace, Lolita. One day you will be understood.
Darling, darling, doesn't have a problem lying to herself, 'cause her liquor's top shelf. It's alarming, honestly, how charming she can be. Fooling everyone, telling them she's having fun.